Lieutenant Alex Ryder sat in the cockpit of his fighter, the Falcon V9, staring out into the vast expanse of space. The stars twinkled in the distance, a beautiful yet lonely sight. He had seen many battles in his career as Earth's top fighter pilot, but today felt different. Today, he was not on a routine mission. Today, he would answer a call that could change everything. It was a typical day at Earth's Orbital Defense Station. Ryder had just returned from a training exercise, his ship well-maintained and ready for action. His thoughts were interrupted by the sudden beep of an incoming transmission on his communicator. He glanced at the screen. It was an urgent message. The voice on the other side was strained and full of desperation. "This is Captain Zarin of the Zaroth, a ship of the Quellian fleet. We are under attack. Please, we need immediate assistance." Ryder's heart skipped a beat. The Quellian were a peaceful species, known for their wisdom and advanced technology. They had never been involved in any conflict, preferring diplomacy over war. To hear that they were under attack was unusual, and to be calling for help, that was unheard of. "Lieutenant Alex Ryder, Earth Defense Force," Ryder replied, his voice calm but filled with determination. "I hear you, Captain Zarin. Stay with me. I'm sending coordinates now. Help is on the way." He immediately activated the Falcon V9's navigation systems, inputting the coordinates. The ship's engines hummed to life, and Ryder's hands moved with practiced ease over the controls. As the ship shot forward, he could feel the rush of acceleration press against his chest. The mission was now in motion. "Hold tight, Captain. I'll be there as soon as I can." Ryder spoke into his comms again. He had never been one to hesitate. Every mission was important, but this one felt different. He had always believed in the strength of Earth's forces, and this was a chance to prove that their military might could protect those in need, no matter the distance. He wasn't sure what he would face when he arrived, but one thing was certain: he would not let an innocent species fall to the hands of an unknown enemy. The Falcon V9 flew through the stars, the bright blue of Earth's atmosphere fading. Behind him, Ryder glanced at the radar. There were no signals yet of the enemy fleet, but the Quellian's distress signal had given him a vague location. As he drew closer, the darkness of space seemed to envelop him, the silence more intense than ever. Who would attack the Quellian? Ryder thought aloud. They don't provoke anyone. They just want peace. His mind raced through the possibilities, wondering if there was some new enemy lurking in the shadows of space, waiting for the right moment to strike. Whoever they were, they had made a grave mistake if they thought they could overpower Earth's best pilot. As the ship neared the coordinates, the first signs of danger appeared on Ryder's radar. A series of unknown ships emerged from the blackness. Their design was nothing like anything Ryder had ever seen. They were jagged, dark, and menacing. The ships appeared to be positioned around the Zaroth, creating a blockade that prevented the Quellian vessel from escaping. Ryder's eyes narrowed, his instincts kicking in. These ships weren't just attacking. They were cornering the Zaroth, trapping it like a predator would a helpless prey. "Time to put my skills to the test," Ryder muttered to himself. He toggled the comms once again. "Captain Zarin, I'm almost there. Stay calm. I'll take care of the rest." The captain's voice crackled over the comms, a hint of relief in her tone. "You don't know how much we needed this, Lieutenant. Thank you for coming, but we are running out of time. We've already sustained heavy damage. I don't know how much longer we can hold out." Ryder could hear the stress in her voice, but he didn't have time for hesitation. He had to act, and fast. With a steady hand, he maneuvered the Falcon V9 through the enemy fleet, evading incoming fire as the alien ships unleashed a barrage of missiles. Ryder gritted his teeth, skillfully dodging the attacks while his ship's weapon systems locked onto the nearest enemy ship. "Target acquired," Ryder muttered, his fingers dancing over the controls. The Falcon V9's cannons fired in rapid succession, the powerful blasts tearing through the enemy ship's shields. The enemy vessel exploded in a fiery burst of light. But Ryder didn't have time to watch it burn. He immediately targeted another ship, his hands moving in a blur of motion as he adjusted his speed and angle. The second enemy ship was hit directly in its weak spot, the engines going up in flames. "Two down, and we're just getting started," Ryder said, his voice steady. He was in his element now, the adrenaline pumping through his veins. With every enemy ship that went down, he felt his confidence growing. The Falcon V9 was a marvel of human engineering, and with Ryder at the helm, it was a force to be reckoned with. The Quellian ship Zaroth came into view. Ryder could see it clearly now, its sleek design marred by the damage it had sustained. Parts of the hull were torn open and fires burned along its side. The alien crew was trying to contain the damage, but the enemy was relentless. "Lieutenant, we need to get closer. We can't abandon the Zaroth." Captain Zaren's voice echoed in Ryder's ear. "There are injured people aboard. We cannot lose any more." Ryder's heart went out to the crew. The Quellian had never been at war. They were peaceful beings, with a culture that valued knowledge, art, and exploration above all else. Yet, now they were being torn apart by a violent force, and Ryder was their last hope. He adjusted his course, heading directly for the Zaroth. He couldn't afford to waste any more time. Ryder's ship weaved in and out of the enemy fire, taking risks that would have terrified most pilots. But for him, it was just another day at the office. As he approached the Zaroth, Ryder's onboard computer displayed the full status of the ship. There were still several enemy ships in the area, but Ryder was determined to make this rescue. He fired off a few more shots, taking out another of the enemy ships, and then made a risky move. He was now right on top of the Zaroth, and the enemy ships were closing in. "Captain Zaren, get ready. I'm coming in hot," Ryder said, preparing for a daring maneuver. He would fly the Falcon V9 as close to the Zaroth as possible, providing cover for the crew while they evacuated the most vulnerable. "I'm ready, Lieutenant," Captain Zaren replied, a sense of resolve now in her voice. "Thank you," Ryder grinned. "No need to thank me yet. We've still got a fight ahead of us." Lieutenant Alex Ryder's heart pounded in his chest as he surveyed the battlefield. The Zaroth was still visible ahead, its form barely holding together amidst the chaos. The alien ship, once a shining symbol of peace and exploration, now looked like a wounded beast, cornered and vulnerable. Ryder's mind raced with thoughts of the task ahead. It wasn't just about fighting the enemy. It was about saving innocent lives. And that was something he could never back down from. The enemy fleet continued to move, surrounding the Zaroth from all sides. Ryder's ship, the Falcon V9, had already destroyed several of the attackers, but there were more. They seemed to appear out of nowhere, swarming around the Quellian vessel with no regard for anything but destruction. These were not mere raiders or pirates. This was an organized force. Ryder knew they had to be stopped before they reached Earth. "Time to make a move," Ryder muttered, his hands gripping the controls as he adjusted his course. The Falcon V9 responded smoothly, its sleek frame cutting through space with precision. Ryder's voice came over the comms once more. "Captain Zaren, I'm coming in for a close pass. Get ready to move your crew to the hangar bay. I'll cover you as you evacuate." The comms crackled as Captain Zaren responded. "Understood, Lieutenant. We're starting the evacuation process now. Please hurry." Ryder could feel the weight of her words. Time was running out. The Zaroth had already suffered too much damage, and the enemy ships showed no sign of retreating. It was now or never. He increased the throttle, sending the Falcon V9 hurtling through space at breakneck speeds. The ship's engines hummed and the stars blurred as Ryder pushed the boundaries of the vessel's capabilities. As he approached the enemy fleet once again, his heart began to race, but his mind remained focused. There was no room for fear or hesitation. The Quellian crew needed him. Earth needed him. The enemy ships, dark and menacing, loomed ahead like shadows in the vast expanse. Ryder could see their weapon systems charging, ready to unleash another barrage of firepower. He gritted his teeth and darted to the left, narrowly avoiding an incoming missile. The explosion shook the Falcon V9, but Ryder remained calm. His hands moved swiftly over the controls, adjusting his trajectory as he dodged more incoming blasts. "Take that!" Ryder shouted to himself as he fired the ship's powerful lasers, targeting one of the enemy vessels. The blast hit dead center, causing the ship to disintegrate in a burst of flame. Ryder's instincts kicked in, and before the debris could even drift away, he was already targeting the next enemy ship. His ship swerved once more as another round of missiles whizzed past. Ryder didn't flinch. He had faced worse, and his training had prepared him for every possible scenario. But this was different. He wasn't just fighting for Earth now, he was fighting for the Quellian, for beings that had shown nothing but kindness and wisdom. They didn't deserve this. His comms crackled once more. "Lieutenant, we are evacuating the injured now. Your cover is essential." Captain Zarin's voice was strained but resolute. Ryder's eyes flicked to the ship's radar. The evacuation was in full swing. He could see small escape pods launching from the Zaroth, each one carrying members of the alien crew to safety. Ryder's heart swelled with pride for the alien species. They were doing everything they could to survive, and they weren't giving up. Neither would he. With a quick maneuver, Ryder turned his ship into a defensive position, placing himself between the escape pods and the enemy forces. The Falcon V9's cannons opened fire once more, sending a wave of destruction toward the enemy ships. He didn't have much time. The enemy was regrouping for another assault. Ryder's thoughts shifted to strategy. He couldn't just keep fighting forever. There had to be a way to end this battle. But what? He quickly accessed the Falcon V9's tactical systems, scanning the area for weaknesses. That's when he noticed it. An enemy flagship hanging back from the main battle. It was larger than the others, heavily armed, and seemed to be coordinating the attacks. "That's it," Ryder muttered to himself, his fingers flying across the controls. The flagship was the key. If he could take it down, the rest of the enemy fleet would fall into disarray. "Captain, I've got a plan. I'm going after their flagship. It's the only way to stop this." Ryder's voice was filled with determination, and Captain Zarin's response was swift. "Understood, Lieutenant. We'll handle the rest here. Just bring that flagship down." Ryder didn't waste a moment. He adjusted the Falcon V9's course, heading straight for the flagship. The enemy fleet continued to fire, but Ryder skillfully dodged their attacks, weaving between them with expert precision. His mind was sharp, every move calculated and executed with pinpoint accuracy. The flagship was now in his sights, and he could feel the weight of his decision. This was the most dangerous part of the mission, but Ryder knew it was the only way to win. The Falcon V9 sped toward the flagship, its engines roaring as Ryder prepared to make his move. He activated the ship's advanced targeting systems, locking onto the flagship's weak point, a vulnerable power core located deep within its hull. Ryder's hands were steady, his focus unshakable. "Here goes," Ryder muttered, locking his targeting system and preparing to fire. Just as he was about to release the blast, something unexpected happened. One of the enemy ships swooped in from the side, aiming directly for him. Ryder instinctively veered left, narrowly avoiding a collision. The enemy ship's missile barrage hit the flagship, causing a chain reaction of explosions. Ryder's eyes widened in disbelief. Was this a coincidence? Before he could process what had just happened, the enemy fleet seemed to falter. The flagship was severely damaged, and several other enemy ships began retreating. Ryder's mind raced as he tried to understand what had just unfolded. Had the enemy made a mistake? Had their own attack turned against them? But Ryder didn't have time to think. He fired another round from his ship, striking the flagship's power core dead on. The ship exploded in a fiery burst, sending shockwaves through the surrounding enemy vessels. The remaining enemy ships, disoriented and in chaos, began to break formation. Ryder's heart raced with excitement, but there was no time for celebration. He quickly turned his attention back to the remaining enemies. Captain Zarin. The flagship is gone. The rest of the fleet is retreating. The battle is almost over. There was a pause before Captain Zarin responded. Lieutenant, you did it. You've saved us. The crew is safe now. Ryder let out a deep breath, his body still tense from the adrenaline rush. He watched as the last of the enemy ships retreated, disappearing into the vastness of space. The battle was over. For now, the Quellion were safe, and Earth's top pilot had once again proven his worth. Lieutenant Alex Ryder leaned back in the cockpit of the Falcon V9, the ship's systems humming quietly as he watched the retreating enemy fleet disappear into the darkness of space. His heart was still racing from the intensity of the battle, but he knew that the fight wasn't over. As the last remnants of the enemy ships scattered, Ryder's mind was already focused on the next phase of the mission. The Zaroth, the Quellion ship, was now a safe distance from the battlefield. Ryder's job was far from done, though. The Quellion crew was still in danger. Their ship was severely damaged, and there were injured crew members who needed immediate attention. His comms crackled, bringing him back to the present. Lieutenant Ryder. Captain Zarin's voice came through, clear and strong despite the chaos they had just endured. I can't thank you enough for your bravery. You've saved us, but our work isn't done yet. The enemy may retreat, but they won't. Be gone for long. We must move quickly. Ryder nodded, even though she couldn't see him. I know. You're not out of danger yet. I'll stay on standby until the crew is safe. There was a brief pause before Zarin responded. We may need more help, Lieutenant. Some of our crew members are different. They have abilities that might seem unusual to you, but they could be of use in the coming days. I'll explain once we're safe. We must move quickly. They might return. Ryder furrowed his brow. Abilities? What do you mean? Zarin's voice became serious. I can't explain fully now. Just trust me. We'll discuss it once we're aboard the Zaroth. For now, continue to cover us. Ryder hesitated for a moment, but then his training took over. He knew that every moment counted, and this was no time for questions. Understood, Captain. I'll keep watch. With that, Ryder set his course back toward the Zaroth, keeping his distance from the damaged ship while maintaining a vigilant eye on the space around them. His thoughts lingered on Zarin's words. What did she mean by unusual? Abilities? Ryder had seen all sorts of things in his career. Alien technology, strange creatures, and incredible feats of strength. But nothing had ever made him question what he knew of the universe. Now, something about Zarin's tone made him wonder what he was about to uncover. The Falcon V9 flew in tight defensive circles around the Zaroth, keeping watch on the empty void of space. The ship's shields were flickering, struggling to stay online as the crew worked to make repairs. Ryder's eyes never left the comms, waiting for any sign of a new threat. He had just started a new round of scans when the transmission came through. It was Zarin again. Lieutenant, we've reached the docking bay. Please follow us in. The situation is about to change. Ryder felt his pulse quicken. On my way, Captain. Just give me the word. As the Falcon V9 followed the Quellion vessel into the docking bay of the Zaroth, Ryder's eyes narrowed, watching the crew inside the ship move quickly. They were a sight to behold, though their appearance was far from what he expected. They were tall, their skin a soft shade of violet that shimmered under the dim lights of the docking bay. Their eyes glowed faintly, a mix of curiosity and wariness. They were obviously not of Earth, but the look of determination on their faces spoke volumes. Ryder brought the Falcon V9 to a smooth landing in the bay. As the engines powered down, he stepped out, his boots making a soft thud on the alien floor. He was greeted by Captain Zarin, who had already left the command area and was now standing beside a few other Quellion crew members. Lieutenant Ryder, Zarin said, her voice filled with respect. I know you've seen a lot, but there's much more you need to understand. This isn't just a rescue mission anymore. It's a fight for survival. For both of our worlds. Ryder's curiosity piqued, but he said nothing, simply waiting for her to continue. Zarin motioned to the group of Quellians standing nearby. These are my people. You've already met Cora, our warrior captain, who has led our forces on countless peaceful missions. But what you don't know is that some of us, including myself, possess abilities far beyond what you might expect. Ryder's eyes flicked to Cora, a tall, imposing figure with dark blue skin and a stern face. Cora nodded at him before turning. Back to Zarin. I've spent my life studying the universe, Lieutenant, Zarin continued. Our race is not just technologically advanced, but some of us possess an ancient ability to manipulate energy. Life energy, to be precise. We call it the Kira. It allows us to heal, to protect, and in some rare cases, to control the very fabric of space itself. Ryder blinked, processing the information. Wait, you're saying these abilities are not just advanced tech or natural gifts. You're talking about something like magic. Zarin smiled faintly. I can see how you might think that. But no, it's not magic. It's a science, one that has been lost to most of our people. Only a select few have ever truly understood it, and even fewer have mastered it. Ryder took a deep breath, still trying to grasp the full scope of what Zarin was saying. His mind flashed back to the chaos of the battle, to the way he had fought alongside these strange beings. Could these abilities be what gave them the edge? And more importantly, how could they help in the fight to come? Cora stepped forward, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. You are not the only one who can fight, Lieutenant Ryder. We can help, but we need to move quickly. The enemy will return. They won't stop until they've wiped us all out. Ryder nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. Then let's prepare. We need to make sure they don't get the chance. Zarin's eyes glinted. The Kira can give us an advantage, Lieutenant, but we must use it wisely. We've trained for years to control it. It's not something to be taken lightly. Just then, a soft hum filled the room, and a tall Quellian stepped forward, her hand raised. She was thinner than the others, her long, white hair flowing around her shoulders, and her skin was a soft lavender. Her eyes glowed brightly, and the air seemed to hum with energy as she stood before Ryder. I am Lyra, the alien said, her voice calm and clear. I am a master of the Kira. I can show you how it works if you are willing to learn. Ryder looked at her, intrigued but hesitant. You want me to learn this ability? I'm not sure I'm the right person for it. Lyra smiled. Not everyone is. But you have the potential, Lieutenant. You've already shown your worth by helping us. If you're willing to try, we might be able to give you a fighting chance against the enemy. Ryder thought for a moment. This was beyond anything he had ever imagined, but the stakes had never been higher. Earth was in danger, the Quellian were in danger, and he had to do everything he could to ensure their survival. All right, Ryder said, his voice steady. I'll learn, but we don't have much time. Lyra nodded, and with a wave of her hand, she began to demonstrate the Kira, her movements graceful and fluid. Ryder watched closely, his eyes narrowing as he tried to understand the patterns in the energy flow. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, yet somehow it made sense in a way. He could feel something stir within him, a connection to the energy around him, like a spark waiting to ignite. Now, you try, Lyra said. Ryder closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He focused on the energy around him, willing it to move. The room was quiet, save for the hum of the ship's systems. For a moment, nothing happened, but then Ryder felt it. A faint pulse, a surge of energy that seemed to flow from his fingertips. He opened his eyes and saw a faint glow surrounding his hands. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Lyra's smile widened. You've made progress already. With more practice, you'll be ready. Ryder nodded, his mind racing. This was just the beginning. The battle for Earth and for the Quellion was far from over. And now, with this new ability, he would have a chance to turn the tide. Lieutenant Alex Ryder stood in the war room aboard the Zaroth, the humming of the ship's systems all around him. He had learned much in the past few hours. The Quellion were not only peaceful beings, they were also powerful, with abilities that rivaled Earth's finest weapons. Yet despite their powers, they were vulnerable. The enemy fleet wasn't just a simple threat, it was an organized, ruthless force determined to wipe out any species that stood in their way. And now Ryder was their best hope. He glanced at the Quellion leaders gathered around the table. Captain Zarin stood beside him, her face as calm as ever, but there was an undeniable edge in her eyes. She knew what was at stake. Beside her, Cora, the Quellion warrior captain, had a fierce expression. She wasn't someone who trusted easily, but Ryder had earned her respect. Her strength and resilience were evident in the way she carried herself, and she was determined to protect her people at all costs. Ryder had trained for countless missions, but this was different. He wasn't just a pilot anymore. He was a key player in the defense of two worlds. He had been given the opportunity to learn the Kira, the Quellion energy manipulation ability, and although it was new and strange to him, he could already feel its power inside him. But he wasn't sure how much he could truly control. Would it be enough to defeat the enemy? "Lieutenant," Captain Zarin said, her voice steady but with a hint of urgency. "Our scans show that the enemy is regrouping. We know they'll be back, and we need to be ready. I've spoken to the Council, and we believe it's time to strike back." Ryder nodded. "What's the plan?" Zarin gestured to the holographic map projected in front of them. Several red dots blinked on the map, each one representing enemy ships scattered throughout the sector. Ryder could see the larger enemy fleet, still intact, and knew they would be coming for the Zaroth. "We're going to hit them before they can regroup," Zarin explained. "We'll strike at their weak points, disrupt their communications, take out their supply lines, and neutralize their leaders. This will be a quick, surgical strike." Ryder felt a surge of determination. This wasn't just a defensive mission anymore. They were going on the offensive. It was a risky move, but it was the only way to take the fight to the enemy. Cora stepped forward, her voice low but filled with conviction. "We will fight beside you, Lieutenant. The Kira will give us an advantage, but it will take all of us working together. We are not just allies. We are one force. You're ready, Ryder." "We all are." Ryder felt a wave of gratitude toward Cora. She had been instrumental in helping him harness the Kira, guiding him through the early stages of mastering the energy. But there was still so much he didn't understand about it. He had learned how to summon a small amount of energy, but could he control it when lives were on the line? "I'm ready," Ryder said, his voice steady. "Let's end this." The Zaroth and the fleet of Quellion ships, accompanied by Ryder's Falcon V9, powered up and moved into position. The plan was simple: strike fast, disable the enemy fleet's communications, and take out their leaders before they could react. The Quellion ships, with their advanced technology and the newly awakened powers of the Kira, would be the spearhead. Ryder and the Falcon V9 would provide air support and be the first line of defense if things went wrong. As the fleet moved toward the enemy position, Ryder's pulse quickened. His hands tightened on the controls of the Falcon V9. He was ready. This was the moment he had trained for. The moment where Earth's finest fighter would meet the full force of the enemy. The enemy fleet appeared on the radar, as large and menacing as before. But this time, Ryder wasn't alone. He had Cora, Zarin, and the full might of the Quellion people beside him. The enemy would feel the full strength of their united force. "Prepare for engagement," Zarin's voice echoed over the comms. "On my signal, we strike." Ryder nodded, taking his position behind the Quellion ships. His eyes were locked on the enemy fleet, watching as they moved into firing range. The Falcon V9's systems lit up, displaying a full range of targeting data. Ryder's mind was sharp. He could almost feel the energy of the Kira pulsing in, the back of his mind. It was as though his connection to the universe itself had deepened, but he still wasn't sure if he could truly control it. There was no time for doubt now. Zaren's voice crackled through the comms again. "Now!" The Quellian ships surged forward, their energy shields flickering to life as they collided with the enemy fleet. The Zeroth and its allies opened fire, their weapons cutting through the darkness of space. Ryder followed closely behind, weaving in and out of the chaos, firing at the enemy ships with deadly precision. He was faster, more agile than he had ever been, and the Falcon V9 seemed to respond to him as if it were an extension of his body. The first few enemy ships fell quickly, their shields collapsing under the force of the Quellian's weapons. Ryder targeted one of the larger vessels, unleashing a barrage of missiles that tore through its hull. The ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, sending debris scattering in all directions, but the enemy wasn't backing down. They retaliated fiercely, launching waves of missiles toward the Zeroth and the Quellian fleet. Ryder's sensors blared as incoming missiles locked onto his ship. He veered sharply to the left, narrowly avoiding a direct hit. His hands moved swiftly, firing back with precision. Each shot felt more natural than the last, as though he were tapping into some deeper power, something more than just his piloting skills. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the Zeroth. Ryder's heart skipped a beat as the ship shuddered violently. The enemy had targeted their main energy core. Ryder's comms lit up with urgent voices, but he couldn't make sense of it all. His focus shifted to the chaos unfolding around him. He needed to protect the Zeroth, and he needed to do it now. "Zaren," Ryder called into the comms. "What's the status?" "We've sustained heavy damage to the core," Zaren's voice responded, strained but calm. "We need to buy time. Can you help us?" Ryder glanced at the enemy ships closing in on the Zeroth. His heart pounded in his chest, but he forced himself to think clearly. "I'll hold them off. Just get that core back online. We'll do this together." With renewed resolve, Ryder dove back into the fray. His target was the flagship, the heart of the enemy fleet. He knew that if he could take it down, the rest of the enemy ships would fall apart. Ryder's eyes narrowed as he locked onto the flagship, his hands moving with precision. The Falcon V9's weapon systems fired, the lasers and missiles tearing through the enemy defenses. The flagship's shields were strong, but not invincible. Ryder's mind raced. He had to finish this now. He wasn't sure if he could control the Kira yet, but this felt different. The energy surged inside him again, a heat that seemed to come from the very core of his being. Ryder closed his eyes for a moment, focusing on the energy, feeling it pulse through him. He raised his hands in the air as if reaching for the stars themselves. For a moment, everything seemed to slow down. Ryder's connection to the Kira deepened, and he could feel the energy around him, moving like a current. He stretched out his hands, guiding the flow of energy toward the flagship. A surge of power exploded from him, focused into a brilliant beam that cut through the flagship's shields. The enemy flagship shuddered under the impact, and Ryder felt a wave of satisfaction as it finally exploded, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The enemy ships faltered, their communication systems thrown into disarray as the flagship fell. Ryder's heart raced. The enemy was retreating. The Quellian fleet pressed forward, finishing off the remaining enemy ships. Ryder didn't stop to watch the victory unfold. He had one job left, to ensure the Zeroth and its crew were safe. "Zaren," Ryder said, his voice calm but firm. "The flagship's gone. The rest of them are retreating. Your ship is safe." There was a long pause before Zaren's voice came through. "Thank you, Ryder. You've done it. We owe you everything." Ryder let out a breath, his hands still gripping the controls of the Falcon V9. The battle was over, for now. But Ryder knew the war was far from finished. There would be more enemies to face, and the Kira was just beginning to reveal its potential. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the battered hull of the Zaroth. Ryder's Falcon V9 was parked in one of the ship's docking bays, its engines still humming softly after the chaos of battle. The Quellian crew worked feverishly around him, repairing the damage to their ship, but there was an unmistakable air of uncertainty. The victory had come at a high cost. Ryder stepped out of his fighter, his boots making a soft thud against the metallic floor. He hadn't had much time to rest since the battle began, and his body was still buzzing with the adrenaline of the fight. The damage to the Zaroth had been extensive. Though they had successfully pushed back the enemy fleet, they had sustained heavy losses. Many of the crew members were injured, and the ship's core had been damaged in the heat of battle. Yet despite everything, the Quellian were resilient. They were still fighting, still determined to survive. Captain Zarin was one of the first to approach Ryder as he stepped off the Falcon V9. She gave him a nod of appreciation, though her face was drawn with exhaustion. "Lieutenant Ryder," she said, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "You've done more than we could have hoped for. Your skill and bravery saved us." Ryder gave a small nod. "It wasn't just me, Captain. It was all of us. Your crew fought hard." Zarin smiled faintly. "But you were the one who led us. Earth's finest pilot, as they say. You've earned our respect." Ryder felt the weight of her words. He was used to recognition back home on Earth, but this felt different. The Quellian were not just allies, they were now friends, and they had trusted him to protect them. That wasn't something to take lightly. Before he could respond, Cora, the Quellian warrior captain, approached them. Her usual stoic expression was softer than it had been earlier, but there was still an unmistakable intensity in her eyes. "The enemy will not stop," she said bluntly. "We can't afford to rest. They'll return soon, and next time they'll bring more forces. We have to be ready." Ryder nodded. He knew she was right. The battle had been intense, but they had only delayed the enemy's advance. He could already sense that this was far from over. The enemy had shown too much determination, too much cruelty, to let a setback stop them. "I agree," Ryder said, his voice firm. "But we need a plan. We can't keep fighting this way forever. We need to hit them where it hurts." Zarin stepped forward, her eyes scanning the data on the ship's control panel. "We've already started working on a strategy. We have information from the enemy's communications, thanks to the damage we caused. They were not prepared for the kind of resistance we offered. This is our chance. We need to find their supply lines and strike at their leadership." Ryder studied the data, his mind racing. They had already neutralized the enemy flagship, but there was so much more to do. If they didn't break the enemy's will to fight, this war would never end. But how could they make the most impact? "We need to strike fast and hard," Ryder said. "Target their key resources, take out their commanders. Without those, the rest of their forces will be in disarray." Zarin's eyes gleamed with understanding. "Exactly. We'll divide our forces. One group will attack their supply convoys, while the other will go after their command centers. We'll hit them where it hurts the most." Cora stepped forward, her hands clasped in front of her. "We should use the Kira. The energy manipulation abilities of our people are powerful, but they're not unlimited. We need to use them strategically, not waste them." Ryder felt a sense of unease. The Kira was powerful, yes, but it was also unpredictable. He had only just begun to understand the depths of the energy that flowed within him. Could he really rely on it when the stakes were this high? "I'll be ready," Ryder said, his voice steady. "I've learned enough to know how to use the Kira when I need to. I won't let you down." Zarin placed a hand on his shoulder, her expression softening for a moment. "I believe in you, Lieutenant. You've already proven yourself. We'll make this work together." Ryder nodded, his confidence bolstered by her words. He knew the fight wasn't over, but he also knew that they were stronger than they had ever been. The Quellion had shown him what true strength looked like, both in their resilience and their ability to work together. The plan was set in motion. The Zaroth and its fleet began to move again, this time with a renewed sense of purpose. Riders. Falcon V9 was ready to provide cover, but this time he was not alone. He had learned the Kira and understood the importance of working alongside the Quellion. This mission would not be like the last. As the fleet entered enemy space once more, Ryder could feel the tension in the air. The enemy had regrouped, and they were waiting. But they didn't know what was coming. The first target was a convoy of supply ships, vital to the enemy's war effort. The Quellion ships, with their advanced stealth technology, crept silently into position, taking the enemy by surprise. Ryder and his fellow pilots swooped in from above, unleashing devastating firepower that tore through the convoy's defenses. Explosions lit up the dark expanse of space as Ryder's lasers cut through the hulls of the enemy vessels. "This is too easy," Ryder muttered under his breath as he fired another shot, watching as the supply ship crumbled before him. But even as he said it, he knew better than to get too comfortable. The enemy would retaliate. They always did. Sure enough, moments later, a swarm of enemy ships appeared from the darkness, attacking the Quellion fleet with renewed fury. Ryder's heart raced as he dove into the fight again, his Falcon V9 darting in and out of the chaos. The battle was relentless, but Ryder and the Quellion stood strong. They were prepared this time. Cora's voice came through on the comms. "Ryder, we've disabled the convoy. It's time to move on to the next target. The enemy command center is just ahead." Ryder adjusted his course. "I'm on it. Let's finish this." The next target was even more heavily guarded. The enemy command center was located on a massive station, orbiting a distant moon. Ryder could see it clearly on his radar, a fortress of metal and technology. It was the heart of the enemy fleet, and taking it down would be a devastating blow. The Quellion ships approached cautiously, using the cover of asteroids and debris to stay hidden. Ryder followed closely behind, his Falcon V9 ready for the final push. He could feel the energy of the Kyra inside him again, more powerful than before. He wasn't sure how much he could do, but he knew he had to give it everything he had. The Quellion launched their attack first, their weapons striking the station's outer defenses with deadly precision. Ryder took the opening and dove in, targeting the weak points he had scanned earlier. His lasers blazed through the darkness, hitting the station's power generators, but it wasn't enough to bring it down. "I'll finish this," Ryder said, his voice low. He felt the Kira surge within him, and for the first time, he felt in complete control. He reached out, focusing the energy, guiding it toward the station. His hands began to glow and a burst of power shot from him, striking the heart of the station. The explosion was massive, sending shockwaves through space. The station cracked and crumbled, its defenses crumbling under the force of the blast. Ryder exhaled slowly, watching as the enemy command center disintegrated before his eyes. The enemy fleet faltered once more, their coordination thrown into chaos. The remaining ships began to retreat, their leaders now lost and their supply lines cut off. "We did it," Ryder said, his voice filled with relief. But even as he spoke, he knew that the battle was far from over. The war was not won yet, and there was still more to come. But for the first time, Ryder felt a glimmer of hope. He had proven to himself that he could control the Kira, and the Quellion had shown him that together they could achieve anything. The enemy was not defeated, but they were closer than ever before. The silence of space was almost deafening as Ryder and the Quellion fleet drifted through the blackness. The calm before the storm was always unsettling, especially after the intense battles they had faced together. The Zaroth had been repaired, as much as possible, and the Quellion ships were once again operational, though they still bore the scars of the earlier conflict. Ryder stood in the ship's war room watching the blinking red dots on the holographic display. The enemy fleet was assembling again, And this time, it was much larger. "This is it," Ryder muttered under his breath, his eyes narrowing. He had known this day would come. The enemy had retreated several times only to regroup with greater forces. He had learned to respect their persistence. But this would be their final chance to stop the invasion. Captain Zarin entered the war room, her expression a mix of determination and weariness. "We've had some time to regroup, but not much. The enemy has formed a massive fleet, and they're heading straight for us. We cannot afford to let them get any closer. We have to stop them here." Ryder didn't need to hear any more. He was already in motion. "I'm ready," he said, his voice firm and resolute. Zarin nodded, the weight of leadership clear in her eyes. "We need to break their forces, disrupt their strategy. We'll need everything we've got for this." Beside her, Cora spoke. Up, her usual stoic demeanor now matched with an intensity that Ryder had come to respect. "This battle will decide everything. If we don't stop them now, they'll come after Earth. We cannot let that happen." Ryder's heart pounded in his chest as the seriousness of their situation settled in. The stakes had never been higher. Earth's safety, the survival of the Quellion, and the future of this entire region of space depended on this battle. He glanced at the holographic display again. The enemy fleet, now a vast armada, was closing in fast. They had no more time to waste. "We'll need to target their command ship. If we destroy their leadership, the rest of the fleet will fall apart," Ryder suggested, his voice filled with resolve. Zarin agreed. "We'll split our forces. A small group will go after the command ship while the rest of us keep the enemy occupied. If we can take out their communications, their fleet will be in chaos." Ryder nodded. "I'll take the Falcon V9. I know the ship's systems better than anyone." "I'll be with you," Cora said, her voice steady but full of purpose. "The Quellion will provide backup, but I'll be on the front lines with you." With that, the team made their final preparations. The Quellion ships powered up, their engines humming with energy. Ryder climbed into his fighter, the Falcon V9, and settled into the cockpit. His hands gripped the controls with familiarity, but his mind was focused, sharper than ever before. This wasn't just another mission. This was the final stand. As the fleet launched into space, Ryder felt a sense of unity unlike anything he had experienced before. Earth and the Quellion were no longer separate entities. Now, they were one. Together, they would face the enemy. The vast emptiness of space stretched before them, and Ryder could see the enemy ships ahead, large and menacing. The enemy flagship was at the center of their formation, its dark hull looming like a shadow over the rest of the fleet. "This is it," Ryder said to himself as he activated the ship's systems. "No turning back now." The battle began almost immediately. The enemy opened fire as soon as they saw the Quellion fleet approach. Ryder's heart raced, but his hands moved instinctively. His fighter surged forward, dodging the first round of missiles with ease. He fired back, the lasers from his ship cutting through the darkness, striking enemy ships with deadly precision. Cora was right behind him, her ship darting in and out of the battle, targeting enemy fighters with the skill of a seasoned warrior. Ryder couldn't help but admire her speed and accuracy. She was a force to be reckoned with. As the battle intensified, Ryder could see the enemy beginning to regroup, their ships reorganizing into a defensive formation around their flagship. The Quellion fleet pressed forward, but the enemy was well prepared. Ryder's mind raced as he surveyed the battlefield. He needed to find a way to break through their defenses. "Zarin," Ryder called through the comms. "I need a distraction. Their flagship is heavily defended. We can't get through without drawing their fire away from us." Zarin's voice came through clearly. "Understood, Ryder. We'll create a diversion. You focus on the command ship." Ryder's heart beat faster as the Quellion ships began to move into position. He glanced at Cora. "Are you ready?" "I was born ready," Cora replied, her voice full of determination. With that, the Quellion launched a coordinated assault on the enemy's flank. The enemy fleet faltered momentarily as the Quellian ships tore through their defenses. Ryder seized the opportunity. He darted toward the flagship, his Falcon V9 cutting through the chaos of the battle. The enemy flagship fired on him as he approached, its weapons lighting up the darkness. Ryder swerved to the left, narrowly avoiding a direct hit. His ship's systems blared warnings, but Ryder's reflexes were sharp, his focus unbreakable. He retaliated, unleashing a barrage of missiles that struck the flagship's outer shields, but it wasn't enough. The flagship's shields held strong, and the enemy responded with overwhelming firepower. Ryder felt his ship shudder as a few blasts struck the outer hull. His heart raced, but his mind remained calm. He couldn't afford to lose focus now. "Come on," Ryder muttered under his breath. "Just a little more." He dove in again, dodging missiles and laser fire as he got closer to the flagship. He could feel the Kira energy swirling within him, a pulse of power that he had come to trust. He stretched out his hand, focusing the energy through his ship's systems. It wasn't much, but it was enough to guide a pinpoint blast directly to the weak point in the flagship's shield. The explosion was massive, the shockwave rippling through space. Ryder's ship shook, but he didn't let up. He fired again, this time hitting the flagship's engines. The massive ship groaned, its shields flickering. Ryder's heart pounded as he saw the flagship begin to lose power. "Cora!" Ryder called. "It's working! Keep the pressure on them!" Cora's voice came through with a fierce determination. "We're not stopping until they're gone!" The enemy flagship was weakening. Ryder didn't have much time. He had to finish this, or the enemy would regroup and strike back harder. With one final push, Ryder unleashed a concentrated blast of Kira energy, guiding it directly into the flagship's core. The flagship erupted in a brilliant explosion, its destruction sending shockwaves through the enemy fleet. Ryder felt a wave of satisfaction. This was it. The enemy leadership was gone. But even as the flagship crumbled, the remaining enemy ships fought on. The Quellian fleet pressed forward, tearing through the remaining forces with renewed vigor. Ryder and Cora continued to engage the enemy, their teamwork flawless. The battle was far from over, but the enemy's resolve was beginning. "To crack! We've done it!" Zaren's voice crackled through the comms. "The flagship is gone. The rest of their fleet is scattering." Ryder allowed himself a brief moment of relief, but he didn't slow down. He knew better than to let his guard down in the heat of battle. There was still work to do. As the enemy fleet began to retreat, Ryder's Falcon V9 and the Quellian ships pursued, striking down the last of the enemy vessels. One by one, the remaining ships were destroyed or forced to flee. The once mighty fleet was no more. The battle was over. Ryder's hands relaxed on the controls as the final enemy ship disappeared into the distance. He exhaled slowly, the weight of the battle lifting from his shoulders. They had won. Zaren's voice came through again, this time filled with gratitude. "Lieutenant Ryder, we owe you everything. Without you, we wouldn't have made it. You've saved us all." Ryder smiled, though he knew that the victory was not his alone. The Quellian had fought beside him, and together they had saved both, their worlds. "This was a team effort," Ryder said, "and I couldn't have done it without all of you." The war was not over, but for the first time Ryder felt a sense of hope. Earth was safe, the Quellian were safe, and together they would continue to stand strong against any enemy that threatened their future.